Welcome to The Backstory, a podcast from the North Dakota News Cooperative that takes an in-depth look at the stories we're reporting for you. I'm Sabrina Halverson, CEO of the North Dakota News Cooperative. Joining me is Michael Standert, our lead reporter. All right, Michael, this week we are talking about the story that was headlined, Medora Prepares for Presidential Transformation with Hope and Some Anxiety. So this, of course, kind of frames around the presidential library that is being built in Medora, which is a big thing for the area.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes taking place out there. I was out there two times in the last couple of weeks, just talking with people and seeing what was going on. You roll into town and there's just machinery everywhere, cones, lots of activity, and then you get kind of toward the what is that? I guess the western edge of town, towards the Medora Musical area and the Buttes up there, where the presidential library is being built, and there's a roundabout going in, and the presidential lodge, this new hotel, 100 room hotel. So I kind of wanted to capture kind of what's going on now and kind of what it means for the future of Medora and the people that live there and the people that visit. Just kind of trying to capture what's going on and just both from a perspective of how locals feel and just kind of what's going to be happening, for visitors in the next several months once the presidential library opens up, and then looking forward from there.
So I was able to go out there this summer. My husband and I spent a weekend out there in August, and we saw some of the work that was being done, especially right there by the campground, which is where the new hotel is going to be. And of course, when you're out there in the summer, you see how very busy and active it is. Every place was booked up. You have to rent your cabins or get your room weeks in advance. And now with the presidential library that will be opening next summer, are they expecting that to just really explode?
Yes, and around that time of the celebration, I mean, I think it's going to be very limited as far as what people can book for hotel rooms, camping, cabins. I mean, they're looking at potentially opening, camping spots on other grounds. They're talking with different, whether it's the national park or other locations there to just get areas open for people to be able to stay. I mean, in normal times in the summer, it can be difficult to find spots to stay. I mean, when I go out there, it's often been for the Madahe run, and that time can be difficult to find places to stay. So it's even with the addition of this 100 room hotel, I think it's going to be difficult at times for people to book. So I think people should book, far ahead as they can, if they can. And some of this will also spill over into other towns in the area, whether it's, Dickinson and some of the smaller towns close by. I think some of that will spill into their areas as well. And it probably does, I think, in some cases at certain times of the year already.
Yeah, I would agree with you. In fact, I'm planning on going to the grand opening next year on July 4th, and I've already booked my hotel room. And even though I booked it, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, I had to get a room in Dickinson. So it is
Wow.
already
Yeah.
overflowing into Dickinson
Yeah.
just for because the grand opening next year is going to be this huge event, and I know everybody's very excited for it. But I want to know more about the people who work there and the people who there are a few people who actually live there and
Yep.
are there year round. But how is this affecting their lives?
So I think there's like around 100, between 100 and 160 full-time residents out in that area. I talked to some people informally, and then I talked to some people for interviews. There's a lot of excitement about what's happening. There's also a little bit of anxiety about what to expect during that time of the celebrations. When Vice President J.D. Vance came, there was a few delays and things like that with people getting in town and just kind of closing off the town for, whether it's, half hour or so as he comes through. It causes a little bit of disruption, not major. So I think people are just kind of, waiting to see what happens and, how that's going to affect their businesses and daily lives. I know, in speaking with some people, they said, okay, businesses really need to be ready and stock up on things that they think people will need when they're in town. And that's probably normally what happens in, very heavy seasons in the summer. So that's not anything that will really be too shocking to people that are there. But I think, one thing, both speaking with people informally and for interviews is just that the Presidential Library will kind of make Medora more of a year-round destination instead of mostly summer, some early fall, late spring visitors. There's probably going to be more people there throughout the year. And it doesn't get as much snow as other parts of the state and might not get as cold. It still gets pretty windy there in the winter, but it could attract more people in, traditional off-season months.
And of course, when we're talking about tourism in North Dakota, that is probably our biggest draw is Medora, with the amount of people who come in, nationwide and in some cases even worldwide, come in and see the beautiful land that we have in North Dakota, and that's such a pull to people. So expanding it and putting the presidential library there, expanding with another hotel, and then the big event center that's going to be near the golf course, Bully Pulpit. Uh, I'm sure they're expecting that to bring in even more people into North Dakota, and that's going to bring in more tourism dollars.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think it will take some time. I guess with the Bully Pulpit, the barn going in out there, I think that's more like 2027. But I mean, that's kind of building on what they think is going to be happening, the need for more, rooms for people to stay in the area, just kind of capitalizing on, the needs for an event center, this sort of thing. I mean, people have, will have weddings, maybe conventions and things like out there. So, I think people are looking forward to how that's going to change, but also keep things, much of the same. So, retaining some of that quaintness and I was out there just in the last couple of weeks, and it's nice and quiet at this time of year, so it's a good time to go, and nice and cool and not so hot. But yeah, I think it's going to be even a bigger attraction, not just Medora and the national park, but also the library and just all the other offerings that will be in place.
Yeah, and you're right. The fall is a nice time to go. I've been out there in the fall, and went through the park, and it is gorgeous in the fall. If you like it in summer, you will absolutely love it in the fall too. So,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
and when we talk about tourism money, a lot of that does stay in the Medora area when it's spent at businesses and things like that, and it helps the people in that area. But also, some of that tourism money comes into the state, and it's used statewide.
Yeah.
And you have talked with a lot of people, in state departments, and you know quite a bit more about the tourism. How is that money beneficial to the entire state?
Yeah, I mean, well, people are coming through the state from, whichever direction. So they might stay in, Bismarck now is only it's less than 2 hours to get out there now, with the interstate being 80 miles per hour. So it took a little bit less time. So even, coming from Bismarck is not a huge drive. Coming from Minot, some of these other towns within, 2.5 hours. It's not so bad to come out, for the day and then go back, if you can't find a place to stay. And so that spreads the tourism around the state as well. Some of these other places nearby will see more business at restaurants, at hotels, other places in town, whether it's Dickinson or, Belfield or some of these other towns nearby. There'll be more visitors coming through there. So I think it just helps in general as far as tourism dollars being captured in the state.
So, as we kind of wrap up here and think of some final thoughts for our listeners, my final thought for the listeners would be if you are planning on attending next summer, book your hotel rooms now.
Yeah, if they're there. So from what I've heard, it's pretty much booked up.
Yeah.
But there may be opportunities, and I mean, looking nearby in Dickinson or somewhere around there might be an opportunity. I mean, there's Airbnbs and stuff and these sort of things as well to check out.
And like you
Yeah,
said,
book
with the
ahead.
with the freeway, the speed limit change, Bismarck's really not that far. You might have to overflow all the way to Bismarck.
Yeah, no, it's a quick shot out, and it's a nice drive. So
Hmm.
I think there'll be people staying in Bismarck and possibly Minot and places like that as well.
Yeah. So overall, another good thing for North Dakota, help bring in a little bit more tourism money, give more people a chance to see more of our state. All in all, good thing.
And I think a lot of interesting and exciting programs will be at the library, throughout the time it's there. So that will be a kind of continuous draw for people. If they're not so interested in going to a show or whatever, they might go to the library and see some exhibit or some speaker. I think they're trying to bring in some big names, and then people can, of course, mix that with seeing the musical and seeing other things in the area, going to the park. There's going to be just more opportunities to do different things out there as well.
And again, that article was headlined, Medora Prepares for Presidential Transformation with Hope and Some Anxiety. You can read that story on our website at newscoopnd.org or in one of our local newspaper partners. For the North Dakota News Cooperative, I'm Sabrina Halverson. This has been The Backstory.